Human shares his lantern with the alien girl, and the alien girl says the light bent toward him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The wind howled across the ridge like a long metal breath, rattling every loose panel on the old maintenance rails as Evan Mercer climbed the service path. His lantern, a palm-sized plasma light he always carried for night inspections, glowed a steady amber in his hand. The rest of the outpost had gone dark an hour ago when the power grid tripped again, leaving the entire plateau in a blanket of cold and shadow. Evan's boots crunched against the frost-coated stone, each step sending a thin sparkle into the air. It was colder than usual tonight, the kind of cold that slid through fabric and clung to bone. But he moved with the calm familiarity of a man who had done this job more nights than he cared to count. The lantern's warmth touched his wrist, a soft hum pulsing through the metal frame, guiding him along the narrow ledge where the storm winds tried their best to shove him sideways. Then he saw it. No, saw her. A small figure tucked into the shadow of a split boulder, like she had folded herself inward to stay away from the wind. Evan lifted the lantern slightly, letting the amber glow spill forward. In that glow, colors shimmered back at him, skin the soft blue-green of shallow ocean water, hair lifting gently even without a breeze, and eyes reflecting the lantern's light like polished glass. She blinked, startled but not afraid, studying him the way someone studies a sudden noise in the dark. Evan slowed his steps, raising both hands to show he carried nothing but the lantern. "Hey," he said softly, careful not to let his voice carry. "You all right out here?" The alien girl didn't speak at first. She looked past him, toward the trail he had walked, then at the lantern again, as if weighing what part of this situation mattered most. The wind shifted, sending a cold blade of air across the ledge, and she flinched before she could hide it. Evan didn't hesitate. He extended the lantern toward her, pushing it gently into the little pocket of space between them. She stared at it, then at him, her expression rippling with confusion. "This is your light," she said quietly, her voice a soft, wavering tone unlike any language he had heard, yet understandable all the same. "You need it to walk." Evan shook his head with a small half-smile. "Looks like you need it more." She hesitated only a moment before cupping her hands around the lantern. The light brightened at her touch, warming her face in a soft gold glow. Then she drew a sharp, quiet breath. Her eyes widened, reflecting something he couldn't see. "Human," she whispered, awe slipping into her voice. "The light, it bent toward you." Evan stood still for a moment, letting the wind settle, so he could make sense of what she had just said. The light bent toward him? He almost laughed at the idea, but something in the alien girl's face stopped him. She was not joking. She was studying the lantern with the quiet focus of someone who understood things he did not. He watched the way the glow curved along her palms, warming the faint patterns that shimmered beneath her blue-green skin. The lantern's pulse seemed to shift, softening as if responding to her touch. Evan cleared his throat gently. "What does that mean?" "The light bending." She looked up at him, eyes steady, the wind tugging a loose strand of hair across her cheek. "Light follows intention," she said slowly, as if translating a belief into something a human could understand. "My people say it leans toward those whose hearts hold steady in dark places." Evan exhaled, unsure what to say to something that sounded half poetic, half scientific, and entirely beyond him. He rubbed a thumb along the metal rim of the lantern, noticing a faint vibration he had never felt before. "I am just a technician," he said with a small shrug. "I fix broken things. That is all." She shook her head so subtly that he almost missed it. The lantern hummed gently between them. "You gave up your light," she whispered. "Most beings guard their warmth. You offered yours." A blush of heat touched his ears, not from the cold, but from the simplicity of her praise. "Seemed like the right thing to do," he muttered. A soft gust rolled over the ridge, sending snow crystals dancing around their feet. The lantern glow wrapped around the swirling frost, turning each particle into a floating spark. The alien girl watched the tiny lights drift upward as if mesmerized. My name is Kayla, she said quietly. I did not expect to meet anyone here. This ridge is forgotten by most. Evan adjusted his jacket collar against the cold. Evan Mercer. And I am here because someone has to be. The outpost is running on backup power, and I need to find out which sensor bank failed before the whole system goes down. Kayla glanced toward the distant towers where faint red emergency lights blinked through the dark. You walk alone out here often? More than I should, he admitted. But the equipment does not fix itself. She held the lantern closer, letting its glow warm her hands. Your world is loud, she said softly. Metal and wind and rules. You move through it like you are used to carrying weight. Evan opened his mouth to respond, but a low vibration shivered through the stone beneath them. He steadied himself, glancing toward the western ridge where a muted flash of light flickered. Probably just another grid surge. We should get you somewhere sheltered, he said. The wind is getting worse. Kayla hesitated, fingers tightening around the lantern. If I give this back, she murmured, the dark will take me again. Evan extended a hand, palm open, offering steady reassurance without touching her. Keep it, he said. I can walk in the dark. She studied him with an expression he could not quite read, half gratitude, half disbelief. Then she stepped closer so the lantern's glow spilled across both of them, painting the ridge in soft amber. Evan, she whispered, as if testing his name. If the light truly bent toward you, perhaps it knows something I do not. The wind eased for a heartbeat, leaving only the quiet hum of the lantern between them as they stood together on the frozen ridge, two different worlds sharing one small circle of warmth. The ridge settled into a softer hush as Evan and Kayla stood within the small circle of lantern light, the wind easing just enough for their breaths to rise in calm white ribbons. Evan adjusted the strap on his tool pack, feeling the familiar weight settle against his shoulder. The outpost's faint emergency beacons blinked in the distance like red stars trying to stay alive. We should start moving, he said, keeping his voice steady so it would not startle her. The maintenance shelter is about half a mile from here. It has heat panels and a comm station that might still work. Kayla let the lantern hover between her palms, its glow rounding gently, as if listening. Half a mile, she murmured. For humans, is that far? Not too far, Evan replied. Just uncomfortable in weather like this. She tilted her head in a way that made her look like she was learning the shape of the world all over again. I can walk, she said softly, as if reassuring herself. Her steps were light, almost soundless, and when she moved, the lantern's glow followed her instead of staying centered between them. Evan noticed it, but did not mention it. He simply walked beside her, adjusting his pace to match her smaller strides. The trail sloped downward, and thin sheets of frost cracked under his boots. Kayla glanced at the surface. Your world freezes in layers, she whispered, like it hides colder air beneath the first cold. Something like that, Evan said with a faint smile. This ridge forms ice even when the readings say it should not. I never understood why. The ground remembers storms, she replied. Sometimes the air forgets faster than the stone. Evan let out a breath that fogged in front of him. That is a poetic way to put it. Kayla walked closer to him, the lantern's glow warming the side of his face. Poetic, she echoed quietly, as if tasting the word. A soft tremor rippled through the ground again, subtler this time, like something shifting deep beneath the surface. Kayla paused, turning her face toward the distant ridge peaks. Does the land here usually move? Evan shook his head. Not normally. The power grid surge earlier might have created a vibration. The conduits run under this section. She nodded slowly, though her eyes stayed fixed on the horizon for a moment longer before she followed him again. The trail narrowed, forcing them to walk close enough that her shoulder brushed his sleeve. The contact was gentle, no more than a whisper of fabric, but Kayla drew a small breath and steadied herself. Humans do not fear the dark as much as I expected, she said. Evan shrugged lightly. I guess I got used to it. Working night shifts does that. Still, she whispered, you step into darkness as if you trust the ground to wait for you. Evan smiled at that. I trust my boots more than the ground. Kayla held the lantern closer to him, and the glow brightened again, warm and steady. The light continues to lean toward you, she murmured. I think it feels safe in your hands. Evan looked at the lantern, then at her, unsure what to say to something that felt both simple and impossibly large. Well, he said softly, let us make sure we both get to that shelter before it gets any colder. Side by side, they continued down the frozen trail, the lantern glow bending gently toward him with every step. The recalibration timer ticked down in a soft blue glow on the console, each second sliding quietly into the next. Evan leaned against the edge of the workstation, arms loosely folded, listening to the subtle hum of the shelter. It was the kind of sound he had heard 1,000 times, but tonight it felt different, shaped somehow by the presence of the alien girl standing only a few feet away. Kayla held the lantern at her chest, its pulse steady and warm. The glow curved gently toward Evan even when she turned, as if the light refused to face anything else fully. She watched it for a long moment before speaking. Your world uses light to see, she said softly. My people use it to understand. Evan raised an eyebrow with quiet interest. Understand what? Intention, she said, tracing a fingertip around the lantern's rim without touching it. Purpose. Truth. The shape of someone's spirit. Evan felt something catch in his chest. That sounds beautiful, he said carefully. But I do not know if I am someone worth reading like that. Kayla looked up at him, her blue-green eyes calm and clear. The light disagrees. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The storm outside had softened to a distant whisper, brushing faint patterns of snow against the shelter's outer shell. Evan turned back to the console to distract himself, scanning the progress bar as it neared completion. We are almost ready, he said. Once the system stabilizes, we can go check the sensor bank. Kayla stepped closer, the soft rustle of her clothing brushing the quiet air. You are willing to walk back into the storm just to fix something that others will never see, she murmured. Is that not unusual for humans? Maybe, Evan admitted. But if the grid stays down, the whole ridge becomes dangerous. People depend on the sensors. I would rather do the work now than let someone get hurt later. Kayla listened with a thoughtful tilt of her head. Where I come from, those who repair the world are honored. Yet you speak as if it is nothing special. Evan shrugged lightly. Doing the right thing does not have to be special. Kayla's gaze softened in the lantern glow. That is why it is. The console chimed, signaling that the recalibration had finished. Evan straightened, pulling on his insulated gloves and tightening the strap of his tool pack. Time to move, he said. The sooner we check the sensor bank, the sooner the grid can stabilize. Kayla followed him to the door, cradling the lantern as if it were both fragile and alive. But before Evan could open the panel, Kayla paused. Her voice lowered to a quiet murmur. Evan, may I ask something? He turned to her, waiting. Why did you give me your light? The question lingered in the warm air of the shelter, soft and delicate. Evan searched for the right words, but they felt too large for the moment. So he chose the simplest truth. You were cold, he said. And scared. I could see it. Kayla held his gaze, her expression unreadable and full at the same time. The lantern brightened between them, its glow bending in a slow, deliberate arc toward him as if the light itself answered for him. The quiet held them gently until Evan placed his hand on the door control. Come on, he said softly. Let us go fix a ridge. Kayla stepped beside him, lantern glowing like a small sun in her hands, and together they walked back into the waiting storm. Snow swirled in gentle spirals as Evan and Kayla stepped back onto the ridge, the storm no longer fierce but whispering along the rocks with a steady rhythm. The lantern in Kayla's hands glowed brighter than before, its warm arc of light bending toward Evan with every step, tracing a soft path through the frost. Evan tightened the strap of his tool pack and scanned the horizon. Sensor Bank 3 is about a quarter-mile up this slope, he said. Should not take long once we reach it. Kayla nodded, walking beside him with quiet certainty. The ridge feels calmer, she murmured, as if it knows you are here to mend it. Evan let out a short breath that was almost a laugh. I doubt the ridge cares much about me. You would be surprised, she replied, her voice low and thoughtful. Not all places respond to strength. Some respond to intention. They moved in steady rhythm, the crunch of frost under Evan's boots mixing with the near soundless glide of Kayla's steps. The lantern glow followed their movement, warming the air between them and pushing the cold back from their faces. As they ascended, the ground trembled again, a subtle shift beneath the stone. Evan paused. That is new, he said quietly. Kayla tilted her head, listening to the earth the way someone listens to an old friend. It is not harmful, she whispered. Just unsettled. Something beneath the surface is adjusting. Could be the power conduits, Evan said, though he did not sound convinced. If the grid's pressure is uneven, it might cause small shifts like that. Kayla studied him. You speak with calm even when you do not know the answers. Part of the job, he said. They reached a ridge crest where the wind softened, offering a brief pocket of stillness. The sensor tower stood ahead, a narrow metallic structure leaning slightly like it was tired. Its indicator lights flickered faintly, struggling to stay alive against the cold. Evan approached it with a technician's focus. Looks like the relay froze, he said, brushing frost from its surface. I will need to reset it manually. Kayla remained close, lantern held steady, giving him better light. Tell me what you need, she said. Evan removed a small panel and examined the wires. Just keep the lantern right there. She did, and the lantern seemed to respond to his voice, brightening as if eager. Kayla watched the light bend toward him again, stronger than before. Evan, she whispered, the lantern is reacting to you. More intensely. It almost leans. Maybe it is the temperature shift, he said, even though he knew it was not. The glow pulsed softly against his hands as he worked. Kayla stepped closer, careful not to disturb him. My people believe light reveals connection, she said. Not destiny. Not power. Connection. Evan paused at that. The words settled over the ridge like a warm breath. Connection? She nodded. Between two beings whose intentions align. The light recognizes the truth before we do. Evan finished tightening a final wire, the relay clicking back into place. The tower lights steadied, shining brighter against the snowy wind. There, he said softly. That should stabilize the grid. Kayla looked at him with a gentle, searching expression. You repair your world piece by piece, she whispered. And somehow, the light chooses you. The lantern's glow curved toward him again, unmistakable and warm, lighting the ridge as if it had always belonged in his hands.